Good afternoon. Welcome to the 207th episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. We've got the basketball semifinals this weekend. They start today, 2 p.m. We'll get into tonight's matchups, today's matchups, and then Saturday's lineup. More of the games will be on Saturday. Hold up, I'm a little tangled here. And so we've been previewing the semis the last couple days, writing the guide, and it's amazing. There have been 448 playoff games in the last 10 days in basketball. It's been outstanding. So it's really hard to not really miss any of the significant results, but I'm going to go through it today. I'm going to make my picks in all these, and then we've also got some football news to break. There's been another head coaching hire at Parkview, Winterboro, and then we'll get into some recruiting news too. And I'll give my take on some of the teams I think are going to be really dangerous next year. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to go kind of an overview of the semifinals, who's a defending state champ, and then I'll get into the individual matchups. Starting in 7A, Norcross boys and girls are both back in the semis. They swept the titles last year. They can do it again this year, but it will be tough. Joining them on the girls' side is Buford. Norcross is going to play Buford. And Buford, obviously an 8-time state champion on the girls' side. The Norcross boys are going to play Cherokee, who's coming off a 70-66 road win over Carrollton. Cherokee's never won a state title before. Norcross, as I mentioned, is the defending champs. You're going to get McEachern and Brookwood in the girls as well, and then Wheeler and Grayson is going to be the primetime matchup, 8 p.m. What a game that will be. And I want to talk a little bit about Wheeler because I'm not seeing this anywhere. Besides Kyle Sandy reported it before the matchup against McEachern, and then I think his podcast yesterday, head coach Larry Thompson, he said after the North Gwinnett game, there were some technicals handed out, and he received a 2-game suspension, which means he would be out again against Grayson. Once again, Kyle Sandy's been reporting that. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but that is huge news. Obviously, it didn't matter against McEachern. Wheeler is an outstanding team, but we'll see. If he's not on the bench against Grayson, hopefully someone will actually report that fact, but then he would be back for the state championship. But I was just completely shocked that I hadn't seen that anywhere. And Wheeler's obviously received a lot of coverage this year, but I guess they're just expected to win. People see them win and want to talk about what the players are doing, but that's a huge deal. I just can't imagine in any other sport. I gave the example, like in football, if Joey King, head coach at Carrollton, missed the game for whatever reason, it'd be big news. So Kyle Sandy's the only one I've seen reporting that. So that's pretty incredible. Let's go to 6A real quick. On the girls' side, you have Lovejoy against Brunswick, and then Hughes against River Ridge. With Brunswick, that's a team that doesn't necessarily rely on the three-point shot that much, but in their last win, they did make 8 of them. We'll see if they can get hot again, but Lovejoy with Brianna Preston and company looks outstanding. And then Hughes against River Ridge. I think this is going to be a big test for River Ridge. Hughes looks outstanding, but there's a lot of conversation that River Ridge might be the best girls team in the state this season. Better than Kell, better than Brookwood, the most complete team. They've got so many different scorers, probably 4 different girls that can go off for 20 points apiece. So we'll see if River Ridge can get it done. On the boys' side in 6A, Lee County against Lanier. That'll be a really great matchup. I think Osmar Garcia, the forward for Lanier, has had one of the best playoffs out of anyone in the state, and Lanier is obviously coming off a massive victory. They're just one win away from playing in the state championship for the first time. They beat Grovetown in the last round, the defending state champs. Lee County, they last won a state title in 1985. And then you'll have Alexander against Etowah. We'll see what happens with on the boys' side. Cherokee in 7A and Etowah in 6A, two Cherokee County schools. Both are homegrown programs, typically with some of these other, as I say, blue-blooded programs like Norcross, the Gwinnett schools. They do get a fair share of transfers coming in. That's not the case with Etowah and Cherokee. They've been playing together for a long time, and I think that's going to be a contrast of styles. And obviously, if you were to ask Norcross's coach, Jesse McMillan, he knows Cherokee's a great team. He obviously respects what they've done this year. And you would look at a team like Cherokee, you'd see, okay, they came out of that region with Wheeler. They weren't able to beat the Wildcats, and so you might count them out. But if you look at Cherokee a little closer, the first time they played Wheeler this season, they were up 10 points at the half. And they ended up losing. I'll go into that game real quick. And then Wheeler took the rematch 69-60. Let me go to the first matchup, though. Yes, they ended up losing 69-60 in that game. It was 16-13 at the end of the first. And then, yeah, Cherokee was up 35-25 in the third quarter of that game. So that's interesting. And I think with Cherokee, teams like that, the contrast of styles could not be more apparent. You have just the exceptional five-star guys for a team like Wheeler. Once again, Cherokee's playing Norcross, not them, but in the region, this is what we saw from Cherokee. They move the ball so fast to create that open shot and get that offense going, where a team like Wheeler, it's obviously going to go through Isaiah Collier and Arrington Page down low, getting his easy buckets. But Cherokee, it's all about the ball movement. So that'll be the key against Norcross, especially with all the outstanding players that Norcross has. Can Cherokee move the ball and play its style? It's going to be a really impressive matchup. And then the Wheeler Grayson. Grayson's defense against Walton can't be over-celebrated. They held them to 0 points in the first quarter, which is incredible, and then 7 in the entire first half. They're going to need that same intensity to get Wheeler off its game. And I think the key, more so than slowing down Isaiah Collier, is going to be getting a body on Arrington Page, not letting him get any second chance buckets, and just making it extremely difficult. That'll be a tough task. He's been outstanding, really putting himself in the conversation and getting that respect as just a truly great player that understands the game, knows how to come up big, and just every possession he gets it done in so many different ways. But if Grayson can have a team defense, have a good game plan, I'd be interested to see how much they press, how aggressive they are. But I think if they can get a body on Arrington Page and find answers, that's just got to be the key. You can't let Isaiah Collier and Page go off like they have in the recent rounds, particularly that McEachern game where Page really dominated. In 5A, you're going to have Jones County and Eagles Landing playing in the boys game. They have faced already this season. I believe this will be the third time they played, or maybe even the fourth. Let me see real quick. Okay, so Eagles Landing, 28-1. Jones County, the 4 seed, out of that same region. Okay, so the first time they played, Eagles Landing won 69-62. The next one was 55-45. They met again in the region tournament. This is what gave Jones County the 4 seed. That was a 68-38 win. So the first two were close, single digits, 10-point, and then Eagles Landing just blew them out of the gym, 68-38. So how will this fourth game go? I'll get to my picks later, but should be interesting. See if Jones County can, which they have gotten a lot better. And we've seen what they did in the playoffs. As the 4 seed came out in the first round, got a 20-point victory. They've been playing really great, but they've already lost 3 times to Eagles Landing, and last time they really had no answers for them. So that's Coach Elliott Montgomery at Eagles Landing. They're trying to get to that state championship game. Then you're going to have Chapel Hill against Kell. That will be another big-time matchup. On the girls' side, I just think it is Crystal Henderson and what Kell's been doing. They're going to be playing Jackson Atlanta, who's had a great playoff run. Really solid team. They only have 1 senior on their roster. They're going to be good next year as well. And just playing this Kell team that's been in the hunt for the title the last 3 years before this one, and the consensus #1 team this year in 5A. I think it's a big game for Jackson. Great opportunity to play in a big-time environment against a state championship contender, and we'll see what happens in that one. And then Calhoun against Warner Robins. That is the other girls' game in 5A, and I believe Warner Robins is the only team out of that bunch that has ever won a state title. Down in 4A, I keep wanting to make my predictions, but I want to go over it first. Okay, Hardaway is going to play Griffin. I really like Griffin, what they've been able to do. They've been a #1 ranked team in 4A. Hardaway's had a great playoff run, but it will definitely be a big challenge for Hardaway against this Griffin team that has played a tremendous schedule and set itself apart. You're going to have Baldwin and Holy Innocents. Baldwin comes out of that same region as Griffin. They've beaten Griffin this season, but they're 1-2 against them. And then Holy Innocents, I just think, is probably the hottest team in the state. They have not lost since their game to Westminster, and then they obviously avenged that loss, took the #1 seed, and they're absolutely cruising. On the boys' side, Westover against Pace Academy. Westover has been up and down a little bit. They had the great win over McDonough in the last round. I think they were trailing by 3, had a strong fourth quarter. They're going to have to play Pace Academy now, who has really stepped up with great shooter Kyle Green and company, and then head coach Sharman White, one of the best coaches anywhere in the country. He's got Pace Academy looking really strong in their 4A debut. One of the surprising teams that just keeps winning and keeps having outstanding results is the Benedictine Cadets. They're in the semifinals, and they're going to play Fayette County. And that will be a big-time matchup. I believe Benedictine is coming off that win over Madison County. I think that's who they beat. Madison County was coming off the big win over Lovett. But I just like what Benedictine's been doing. They won the state championship in football, and they've got a lot of those same guys on this team, including quarterback Luke Krummenhock, LaDon Bryant, their big-time playmaker, and just a bunch of ballers that get out there and compete. Benedictine, of course, the only all-boys school or academy in the state. All their guys play multiple sports and really just thrive in that environment and program they've got down in Savannah. Class 3A. Let's look at the boys real quick. Similar situation we saw in football with that loaded region with Carver, Atlanta, Douglas, Cedar Grove, and Sandy Creek. They sent 3 to the semifinals in football, and they sent 3 to the semifinals in basketball. And let me pull something up real quick. Okay, so this is pretty incredible. In that region, Carver, Atlanta, they are not a bad basketball team. They went 0-26 this year, though, and they went 0-6 in the region. In my opinion, they're probably the best 0-26 team to come through the state. But that just shows how ridiculously tough that region is. And Sandy Creek, this was the big win, 115-24. Cedar Grove beat them 80-38. Douglas beat them 90-29. So it was a tough year for Carver, but they can definitely say they were playing in the toughest region when you look at the semifinal and you see these 3 teams still in it. So Douglas is going to play Cedar Grove. I believe all these games have been incredibly close between the two, and yes, they have. So when Douglas played Cedar Grove on the road January 17th, that was a 77-76 win. And then they went to overtime the next time, 62-61 win. So Cedar Grove won the first one, Douglas won the second one, and then they played again on Valentine's Day, and Cedar Grove won 69-64. So Cedar Grove has the 2-1 edge. They're going to play for a 4th time. And then Sandy Creek and Cross Creek. That's a rematch of last year's state championship. And, I mean, even back to Douglas for a second. We talked about how close their games were to Cedar Grove. Sandy Creek kind of blew them out, 77-54 and 77-44. So Sandy Creek, in my opinion, they are the favorite. The question is, can they get past Cross Creek? A lot of people say Sandy Creek has had the most talented roster in 3A multiple seasons, but they have just come excruciatingly close to getting it done. And teams like Cross Creek have been the kryptonite in the past. So Cross Creek has a 14-game win streak heading into the game. I'm going to look at what the score was last year real quick in the championship game. Okay, hold on one sec. Who did Sandy Creek lose to last year? One sec. So Sandy Creek was 26-4 last season. Okay, they lost to Windsor Forest, so I think that was 2 years ago. But anyway, Sandy Creek and Cross Creek, they'll be a great matchup. But really the story is those 3 teams out of Region 5 doing it again. That's a tremendous region. On the girls' side in 3A, Wesleyan and Hebron Christian is the big-time matchup. Hebron's undefeated. They have not played as difficult as a schedule as Wesleyan has. And then Wesleyan and Hebron played last year when Wesleyan was basically a 500 team and Wesleyan got the win. Hebron's been great this year, but I've seen it too many times before where Wesleyan has played this extremely difficult schedule. I think there was one year where they had lost 3 times to Holy Innocents in the regular season. They showed up to the state championship and got the win. I just really like what Wesleyan does in the playoffs. They got Chit Chat Wright, their point guard. She's a junior. She's stepped up and been tremendous. I'll get into my picks later, but that's probably the most intriguing girls game I've seen. And then Calvary Day against Lumpkin County. That'll be a tough one for Calvary Day. I think Lumpkin County, the defending champs, look really, really good right now. Down in 2A, Josie against Banks County. That's going to be the girls' matchup. And then Landmark Christian against Mount Perrin. Mount Perrin, they've got Jessica Fields. She's a sophomore. It's Justin Fields' little sister. She's been racking up the blocks, great rebounder, and one of the pieces on Mount Perrin that has them in position to defend their state title from last year. The boys 2A, Providence Christian against Model. Model has made a great run to the semifinals. It's one of their best seasons ever. And then Providence Christian has just been a really great team in terms of shooting the ball, that crisp ball movement that makes them so dangerous, and getting those open shots. And then you're going to have defending state champion Westside Augusta against a Columbia team that I believe has only lost 1 game this season. Be a great boys matchup. Then on the girls' side, in Class A Division I, Galloway against Elbert County. Yeah, that would be a tough one to pick. I'm just going to make my pick later on that one and leave it. Woodville Tompkins against St. Francis, another big-time matchup. On the boys' side, Class A Division I, you've got 3 private schools and then Swainsboro. So Swainsboro is the lone public school in that semifinal field. I know when they created this Class A Division I and Division II, when they added the multiplier for out-of-district students, that was done to even the playing field, send the private schools into divisions that didn't have the public schools. So I know this probably, per usual, doesn't make some people happy to see the private schools packing the field like this, but Swainsboro will have a chance to get it done. DeMello Jones, Ty Adams, guys that we saw in the state championship against Prince Avenue Christian this year, they're going to be out on the court. I think just the heartbreak they had in that loss. In football, I think this is kind of that opportunity to achieve something special, and they're going to be going up against a great Mount Pisgah team who I believe won a state title as recently as 2021. You're going to have Kings Ridge playing Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon has been tremendous. I mentioned on Monday they're actually leading Class A, all of Class A, in the Directors' Cup standings. That's how good they've been across the board athletically. I think they have a really impressive roster, and in their last win in the semifinals, they closed out that game on a 40-8 run. So once Mount Vernon gets going with their playmakers, they can play with anyone. Then Class A Division II, defending girls state champion Lake Oconee Academy is going to play Mount Zion Carroll, and then Taylor County is going to face Clinch County. That will be a really evenly matched game right there. Clinch County has been outstanding. Taylor County, I think, has only lost 1 or 2 games. Class A Division II for the boys, Green Forest Christian, can they repeat after taking last year's state championship? One of the first times I ever went down to Macon, I think it was like 2011 or 2012, I saw Green Forest there, and it seems like every year they just have 7-footers all over the place, and they've been tremendous. They played 7A schools, 6A, 5A all year. They're going to be a really tough matchup. They're going to play Charlton County, and then a big-time matchup between Wilkinson County and Macon County. Wilkinson County has won, I think, 10 boys state championships. The Macon Centerplex is that home away from home. They're one of those programs that just clutch in the big game. They challenge themselves every single year with a tough schedule. They don't care if they lose early. They don't care if they lose in the region tournament. They care about championships. There'll be a big-time matchup against Macon County. Coach Xavier Whipple and Wilkinson are no strangers to the semifinals. So we'll go ahead and take our first break. I'll come back and make my predictions, but let's thank our sponsor first, Georgia Farm Bureau. Oh, sorry.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So I'm going to go through this, make my picks. I won't spend too much time on the why, but I will in some cases kind of go into the thought process on why I think that team's going to win. So starting in 7A, Norcross against Buford. I think Buford does a great job with its press. They aren't necessarily as big as Norcross. Norcross is probably a better half-court team. Buford's going to try to create those turnovers, have that constant pressure, but I think Norcross, the defending girls state champs, are going to come out and get the win. It seems like it's just the Blue Devils' year, and Buford is just, they're new to 7A. They got to see what it's like to go up against a powerhouse like Norcross in the semifinals before I can crown them the new team to beat in 7A. So I'm picking Norcross in that one. McEachern, Brookwood. I think Brookwood has had some games where, as the number one ranked team or a team that everyone's saying has the most talent, they've got Deanna Collins, Jade Weathersby, just a bevy of players. Kennedy Daniels, a lot of outstanding seniors. McEachern, their head coach, Phyllis Arthur, they've been outstanding. I just think down the stretch, Deanna Collins is one of the most reliable playmakers anywhere in the state. She's the girl you want the ball going to, and so I'm picking Brookwood. So a potential Norcross versus Brookwood state championship. In the 7A on the boys' side, see, I want to be able to go back and be right. I want to think with my head, not my heart, but I think what's going to happen in the Norcross-Cherokee game, people are going to see that Cherokee is a real legitimate team. They're going to earn a lot of respect from what they've been able to accomplish this season. I just think Norcross has the advantage in size. It's a great contrast of styles with the homegrown program and then kind of a destination school like Norcross where if you're one of these big-time recruits that has aspirations to play in college, play in the professional level, you're going to Norcross. That's where the spotlight is. Cherokee's going to give them a heck of a game, but I'm picking Norcross in that one. And then Wheeler against Grayson. Man, how is that game going to play out? I think what we saw in the semifinals across the board was none of these teams necessarily shot the ball well. I guess the exception of Cherokee, they went back and forth with Carrollton, but The Norcross-Newton game wasn't necessarily one with great shooting. The Wheeler-McEachern game, we've seen both those teams shoot better. Grayson, they won just with outstanding defense, but it would just be hard to pick against Wheeler at this point. They haven't lost within the state, and I think they have the ability to play physical offensively. Grayson is going to bring it defensively. They're going to make it difficult, but I just like the way Wheeler's able to finish at the rim. I think Norcross-Wheeler will be the championship matchup. Down in 6A girls, picking Lovejoy over Brunswick. I think Brianna Preston, Lanaya Foster, Foster's the senior. Brianna's the junior guard. She's been playing since she's a freshman. Lovejoy, they're the number 3 seed out of that tremendous region. They're the last one standing. Forest Park's out. Rockdale County's out. However, Lovejoy did get the number 1 seed headed into the region tournament. They were the better team throughout the regular season, and they've been outstanding in the playoffs. Brunswick has a lot of size. I mentioned they got hot from three-point in the last round, but I just think Lovejoy's defense, their guard play with Preston, her ability to score, I'm picking Lovejoy in that one. Hughes and River Ridge. Hughes is a great team. I just like the depth of River Ridge. I think they're probably the most complete team. They have 4 girls that I said can all go over 20 points. Hughes is going to have his hands full picking River Ridge to face Lovejoy in the state championships. In 6A, Lee County against Lanier. Lanier impressed me. They got the win over Grovetown. They took down the reigning champs. Grovetown did have a tough season. They lost to a lot of good teams, but teams that you would expect them to beat, especially a team that beat Wheeler last year and won the state title. Didn't necessarily have their best season, but Lanier is really showing me that Osmar Garcia is just getting it done. Not just double-doubles. He is a true impact playmaker. He scored 18 in halves before. He can haul in 17 rebounds. He can pass. Just a really smart basketball player, and Lanier has a lot of size. I'm picking Lanier over Lee County, and then with Alexander and Etowah, I'm going with Alexander. I think the Cougars had a great win in the semis, and Etowah, they're going to have their hands full. So let's go to 5A real quick. Calhoun against Warner Robins. Let me do a quick look on that one. I have not covered the 5A that much because I've been so high on Calhoun and Warner Robins. Let's see. Obviously, all number 1 seeds. I'm going with Calhoun, and Calhoun is going to play Kell. On the boys' side, Eagles Landing is going to beat Jones County for a 4th time, and they're going to play Kell. I'm picking Kell over Chapel Hill. In 4A, the Griffin girls, they're going to beat Hardaway, and then Holy Innocents is going to hold off Baldwin. It will be a tough game, though. I think Baldwin has a lot of size. They're coming off a huge win over Luella, one of the best teams in the state on the girls' side, but I just think Holy Innocents is way too hot right now. 4A boys, I'm picking Pace Academy, Sharman White, Eric Chatfield, Kyle Green, all those guys, they were my pick heading into the playoffs. And then I think this is where I may differ from other picks, but I'm going with Benedictine. They just keep winning, and Fayette County had a tough game in the quarters. I thought they would handle business a little more against Madison County, but I'm picking Benedictine. 3A girls, I'm picking Wesleyan to serve Hebron Christian its first loss of the season, and then I'm picking Lumpkin County to beat Calvary Day. On the boys' side, I'm picking Cedar Grove to beat Douglas and Sandy Creek to beat Cross Creek. And how epic would that be? A Cedar Grove Sandy Creek state championship. In football, we saw it. That was a crazy ending. And what if we see it again in basketball? That would be really something, and that rivalry will only grow after that. Down in 2A, I'm picking on the girls' side Banks County over Josie. Banks County, the Leopards, they have just been so impressive all season long. And then Mount Perrin over Landmark Christian. I'm going with the Eagles. I think it's going to be Banks County against Mount Perrin Christian. In 2A, I'm picking Providence Christian over Model. Really like how they've shot the ball. And then I'm picking Westside Augusta over Columbia. I think just as the defending champs, they're experienced with the playoffs. They've been in these big games. Columbia is a big test. I just think looking at their body of work this season, they have just really put together a strong run. On the girls' side, in Class A Division I, I'm going with Elbert County over Galloway. I think that will be a really competitive game. Elbert County just has way more depth coming off the bench. I think they're slightly better shooting team as well. I'm picking the St. Francis girls over Woodville Tompkins as well. So that'll be Elbert County, St. Francis in the state championship. On the boys' end, I'm going with Mount Pisgah over Swainsboro. Will be a great game. Swainsboro is trying to be that lone public school to get to the state championship, but I think Mount Pisgah is going to get that win, and then Mount Vernon over Kings Ridge. I really like Mount Vernon to take it this year. Class A Division II, I've got to go with Lake Oconee Academy, the defending state champs, and then Taylor County. That's my pick right there. And then on the boys' end, Green Forest is going to take down Charlton County, and I think it's going to be Wilkinson County against Macon County. Those are my picks. If I'm not 90% or better on them, I will be shocked. But we'll see. Anything could happen. I'm going to be covering the 4A1s closely this weekend down at Fort Valley State. So I'll obviously report back on what I see in those matchups. But just a reminder, I'm picking Griffin against Holy Innocents in the girls' finals, and I'm going with Benedictine and Pace Academy on the boys' end. So we'll see. Lots of big games. But let's go ahead and get into some of our news real quick. So the two coaching hires I want to talk about real quick that just went down in the last week. Okay, we have a new head coach at Parkview to replace Eric Godfrey, who left for the North Gwinnett job. That's going to be Joe Sturdivant. He's no stranger to Parkview. He played there, I think, around the time Frank Core was there, the early 2000s, late 90s. So they go from one alum, Coach Godfrey, to another, Joe Sturdivant. He was also the head coach at Providence Christian and spent 2 years at Rabun Gap. That's in northeast Georgia. It's a boarding school. They've got a really great football team, and they play actually in the North Carolina Independent School League, despite being in Georgia. He previously coached at IMG Academy as their defensive coordinator, and yes, he was a star player for Parkview 2000 to 2002, and those teams went 45-0 when he was there. So it's good. Parkview's going to stay within the program, replace a guy that knows what that orange and blue is all about. Winterboro has a new head coach, and that's going to be Coach Robert Paxia. We can go ahead and pull up the tweet right now. So this is big news for the Bulldogs. He's going to replace Ed Dudley. Paxia previously was at Villa Rica. He went down to coach in Florida at Lake Gibson, and then forgot the name of the other school he was at. But then once the Winterboro job opened up, he is now a head coach in Georgia. And so that would be a big-time opportunity for him. I think with Winterboro, they're always really good. They're going to get 7, 8 wins. It's just been really tough for them, and they've lost a ton of close games over the last 4 seasons. I'd be willing to bet they've lost more one-score games than 95, 98% of the teams. So they have a good head coach coming in, that new excitement, and I know the Bulldogs are excited about that. We'll go to some other football news real quick. I want to pull up this tweet that has a list of names on guys that really have been blowing up. So it says returning starters whose recruitment will take off next season. So I want to go over some of these names real quick. Starting with Kyle Vaca, you'll see him. He's the 5th one from the bottom on there. Kyle impressed me right away. I was at the Gainesville-Johns Creek game. This was 2 years ago. Kyle was a sophomore. He came out against Gainesville and was making just incredible catches. I'm like, who is this guy? And then last year at Johns Creek, he had another big year. I figured he would take a big next step. That team was so young, though. They really struggled, but he came close to 800 yards receiving, had huge games. I think against Pope, he went for over 100 yards easy, had more touchdowns this last year, and really established himself as a deep threat. He catches everything. I think that's one of the things you'll see on his film. It's like his priority is catching the football to where he'll dive just to make sure he has that first down. Last year, we saw him stay on his feet. Once you get that experience and you can make those athletic catches, stay on your feet, and get the yards after the catch, turn the big first down play into a game-changing touchdown. He showed that last year. And then I saw him a couple weeks ago during the Super Bowl, and it's clear to me what he's added in this offseason, and he's going to be at Kell now. It's size. He has a physical ability now. So you couple that with the speed, the great hands, and then he's going to be able to fight for yards, put his head down, get into the end zone, block well. He's training not only his weightlifting. We saw his vertical jump. I think it was like 37 inches. He's doing box jumps. He's doing ladder drills. I think what we're going to see from him is physicality at the receiver position. I think with 2 years of starting under his belt at Johns Creek, playing in those tough games, going to a new offense at Kell with Bryce Clavin at quarterback, Peyton Zachary at receiver, great athletes around him. I think his role and his skill set is really going to fit well next year. And the big thing I think he's going to take to the next level is showing that physicality he has. And he certainly has bulked up massively since his sophomore year and even since mid-season. I mean, I saw him. He is a big kid now. His recruiting's blowing up. I'm excited to see what he does. Another name on that list, though, Sky Niblett, tied in from Gainesville. Man, he had a ton of touchdowns last year. I think he'll play a bigger role as that team loses some of its pieces, like Darius Cannon. They're going to need him. He had some great one-handed catches, a great blocker. He's almost like a fullback at that tight end position. I really like what he's going to be able to do. Zeke Whittington, Habersham Central athlete. He is going to be a junior next season. He's one of the better athletes. He had 97 catches last year as a sophomore for 987 yards and also 131 rushing yards. 97 catches in a season, that is big time. You also have, let's see, yeah, Jaden Kofer from Clark Central. He's a receiver and running back, 5'9", 180. Clark Central had a really tough season. They lost some brutal games, but then were able to win at the end in a must-win regular season finale. They got into the playoffs. I think they had a tough matchup against Alatoona and ended up losing, but I think Clark Central is going to be much improved next season. I think it was a learning opportunity for them after that tough start. J.D. Davis, man, at Grayson, the quarterback, we will see what he does in that new system. Now that Coach Carter has left, they've got some great pieces. Grayson's always tough. They run the ball well, but I think he had some big games last year. He showed he can definitely throw the ball. We'll see what he's able to do there. Maverick Shipman, running back and linebacker at South Forsyth. South Forsyth's coming off a solid season as well. Let's see who else is on this. One sec. Tyler Leishon, yeah, South Paulding, wide receiver, tight end, 6'3", 190, and he's only a freshman currently. He's going to be a sophomore. So a lot of big names. Once again, that's the Recruit Northeast Georgia account. Just a smattering of some of the big guys to watch next year that are coming off big years. The recruiting is going to blow up. I think that's undeniable, and we've seen it for sure. So I'm excited about that, but I really think Kell is a team that we're going to get to see play Parkview right out of the gates. And we saw what they did last year with Peyton Zachary coming out and really making a strong statement. That was Coach May's first year at Kell. I just think they're having a lot of success. I mean, their basketball teams right now across the board, and I think they're comfortable in that Class 5A. Class 5A is really good. There's Creekside, Cartersville, Calhoun, Ware County, Warner Robins. But I think Kell has the talent to compete with them. I think they're going to go into this season with huge goals. They're going to come out. They're going to play a great schedule, big-time games, and I think they have an opportunity to really have a special season. So we will see what the Longhorns will do. But that is it for now. We will be back. The games do tip off in just about an hour. 4 locations, so be sure to go to scoreatl.com. We'll have the score updates. We'll be tweeting some of the results as well from our accounts, and we'll have some coverage. We'll have some coverage this weekend of the action. Tons of content on Saturday for sure. We'll be up close and personal at the 4A. Seth's actually going to be covering the 3A today. He's going to be at Fort Valley State. Great matchups right off the bat. That's going to be just a reminder. The Douglas Cedar Grove game in the boys, the Sandy Creek Cross Creek, doesn't get better than that. And then the girls, Wesleyan against undefeated Hebron Christian, and then Calvary Day against the defending state champion Lumpkin County Indians. Big time matchup. So be sure to follow that, and we will be back.